Hello, Media 200 students. If it's even possible for me to say so, can I just say happy Tuesday? It is the last day of March. Thank God. Wow, what a month. It is March 300th, and it's almost over. No April Fool's jokes tomorrow from me. It just wouldn't be right at this point, I don't think. I know by your journals that many of you are trying to make the adjustment to online learning only, and I am certainly thankful for your willingness to adjust. It's an adjustment for all of us. And I know it's been tough for some of you. I know some of you are intimidated by online learning. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to try to make that as pain-free as possible as we get through the rest of this semester. So I appreciate all of your hard work and your patience. This is kind of a continuation of our lecture that we did on photography, where we went through the basic things that you can do to improve your composition. We're going to talk about video composition. We're going to talk about what it means to be a director and to think like a director. We're going to talk about some basic things you can do to improve your videography as you do shoots. And we're also going to go through shots, why we use certain shots, and why directors use shots. But one of the things that we're really going to discuss as we go through over and over again is that you should think like a director. And when I say think like a director, we're going to use that in a couple of different circumstances. But number one is thinking like a director means that you think about what you're doing as a transaction. Well, one of the worst things that someone could do to us, I think, is come up with their phone or some screen and put it in your face and say, hey, watch this. Now, if it's somebody that you like or trust, when they do that, that's one thing, right? You might watch a video that a friend recommends. But for most of us, that's a painful experience. You like what you like. We watch what we watch. And we don't often have the time or patience to endure, especially if it's a longer video that somebody makes us watch. That can be very difficult. That's the transaction that I'm talking about. In the broader sense, it's you going to the movies when this stuff is all over and you can actually go back out of your house. And if you go to see a first-run movie in a theater, what you're going to pay at the box office is going to be one thing. What is it, $8, $10, $12, whatever that is. Maybe you go to a cheaper theater, that's fine. But if you go to the snack bar, if you're going to get your popcorn and your Coke, especially if they're big, how much is that? How much is that total experience, right? I think it's one of the only places that we allow ourselves to really be robbed. So you're spending $20, $25 for this transaction, which is going to see a movie. So I'm going to be entertained, but I'm going to pay this local theater or this major motion picture company and the actors. All of that money trickles down to the crew. That trade is what we refer to as entertainment, right? So I'm going to give you something, and in turn, you are going to give me an enjoyable experience. And as you do your short films, as you do any kind of video production, that's what you need to keep in mind. People, whether they paid money or not, they are paying me with their time right now, so I need to give them the best product, video experience that I could possibly give them. That is thinking like a director. Ron Howard there. We're going to talk about Ron a little bit later. As a director, I'm also thinking in shots. When we talk about shots are the smallest unit of film. Shots are the segment of video between cuts. And when I think in shots, instead of just setting up a camera and letting it roll and never changing angles and never changing the scenery, I can create a rich story if I think about shots. That means I have to edit later, and editing is an enjoyable experience. Too often, people don't think in shots, and they don't think like a director, and videos suffer because of that. We'll talk about more of that in just a little bit. If I'm going to think like a director, then I know there's three phases of every production, and that is pre-production, that is production, and that is post-production. And we're going to go through all of those a little bit later as well. What the pre-production process means, that's where the writing takes place. That's where casting takes place. Pre-production in a film project is where props and costumes happen, where location scouting happens, where all of the preliminary work takes place. Production is when we're on the set, when we are ready to roll cameras. And then post-production is the editing process, color correction, sound, Foley, all of that. But if you think like a director, you know that any project that you have, there needs to be 3 phases of production. If you don't work in the pre-production process, then your production is going to suffer. There's Ron Howard again. Understand that when you think like a director, you control the selective vision. When we use the term selective vision, it's exactly what you see on the screen here. The camera is the window to the world which you control, and that means that you ultimately decide what people are going to see. So if there's a scene across a room at a bar, right, and people are from left to right filling the screen, what do you want your audience to see? Do you want them to see the bartender who has just taken an extra $10 out of the till? Or do you want them to see the man sitting at the bar who's got a gun on the right side of his body? Or do you want them to see the woman who's walking into the frame? Whatever that is, you ultimately decide out of each scene what you're going to let your viewers see, and that's what's going to drive your story. That is selective vision. You control that world. You are a world creator when you are a director. All right? So some general guidelines. Let's just go through some general guidelines that will improve your videos immediately. Like today, if you use these steps, you can improve your videos immediately. Number 1, whenever possible, use a tripod. If you can get your hands on a tripod and it works well, you are going to be in great shape and your videos are going to look great. The difference between having a tripod and not having a tripod is the distractions that come when you don't have them and you think that you can do handheld and that it's going to look good. And sometimes we use handheld or other kind of gimbals or other kinds of stabilizers, and we get a certain look that we're going for. But if it's just shaky handling of the camera, that is totally distracting, and it will take people out of the project that you're trying to give to them. The good news is that the earth can be your tripod. What do you mean, Paul? Well, the earth can be your tripod in that, let's say you forget your tripod and you're going to film an interview in somebody's office for news or for your documentary, and you've traveled a long way to get there, and for some reason you forgot to throw the tripod in the trunk of your car. You can't cancel the shoot? No, the earth can be your tripod. So I can set up a table, and I can set up the books, and I can set my camera on those books. That's a stabilized environment then for you to shoot with. So the earth becomes your tripod. If you're out in the woods, find a fence post, find a stump, find something that's solid. If there's nothing solid that you can set your camera on, then prop your camera up against something. Use a tree and pin your camera to the tree. Sometimes you have to deal with whether a shot is straight or not and balanced because of this, but whenever possible, if you can, use a tripod. Okay? We're going to go through some common shot types. That's what I want to end with this part 1, and we're going to talk more about shot types in the second part of this series. But to end, let's go with the 5 best cinematic shots of all time.